Cecil, I can't remember. Have we had the Doors discussion before?
They have. I don't remember.
Yeah.
Interesting band. I wouldn't say they're my favorite, but certainly were hot on the LA scene there right at 50 years ago.
Hard to go by a place like the Whiskey A Go-Go or something there in Hollywood and not think of bands like the Doors,
It is.
That whole LA thing.
Yeah. I thought about that some when Once Upon a Time in Hollywood came out, which was set in that time, and the Doors were a big part of the soundtrack, for better or worse.
Did you like Brad Pitt getting that Best Supporting Actor nod at the Oscars Sunday night?
I wanted Joe Pesci to get it.
Yeah.
But I have no problems with Brad Pitt. I thought Brad Pitt was really good in the movie.
Did you think Leo maybe deserved the nod there for Best Actor for that role as Rick Dalton?
I thought he was certainly good. I think it was, you could sense the momentum that Joaquin Phoenix has had for a while now with the Joker role and he was certainly good as Joker. Is everybody going to win playing Joker? It's the next question, I guess. If you just got to have an Oscar on your resume, you need to play Joker. But that's not. I thought he was good. I didn't think. I thought there were good things about Joker. I'm not as anti-Joker as some people were. I thought it was fine. But I don't know how much depth you really want out of your comic book or pseudo comic book movies. But
it was heavy. It was heavy. That's for sure.
It was dark in a way that I think Todd Snyder, the director, I think he wanted it to be dark, and I did not think. Hey, different films, and you hate to compare. You get into that, who's better, Mahomes or Lamar Jackson kind of debate. I will take Heath Ledger's Joker all day, every day.
Yeah, that was amazing. Absolutely. Yeah. No doubt about that.
But I hated that, and I hadn't seen Parasite, so I can't weigh in one way or the other.
I haven't either.
I will at some point. It may be on the 52 inch at home, but I'll see it.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't weigh in on whether it's better or worse. I really enjoyed Irishman and really enjoyed Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So was pulling for those guys, which those are basically guys' movies, no question about that.
Yes, they are.
But some great performance. I think the best scene of the year was DiCaprio and the little girl, the method actress, when he's filming the Western. And,
with Luke Perry.
Yeah. Luke Perry, the late Luke Perry.
I agree.
I thought that was the scene of the year. So
I agree wholeheartedly. Of all the acting I did see of those films, and I only saw the three. I saw Joker, I saw The Irishman, and I saw Once Upon a Time. I wholeheartedly agree that the scene from Lancer with Rick Dalton and the 10-year-old actress, Julia Baker, I believe is her name, and the late Luke Perry. That was the best stretch of acting, period. Julia included in that. She was tremendous.
Sure. Oh, absolutely. That's a hard thing to do, to be a
10 years old
actress playing an actress. Those kind of things are hard to do.
Yeah, agree. Let's get into some sports, I guess, Cecil. Sure. And obviously hot and heavy into SEC men's basketball right now. And so I got to ask you the question at this point, is there a fourth or fifth team in the league that at least to you jumps out as NCAA tournament likely? Because once we get beyond LSU and Auburn in Kentucky right now, it seems to become more convoluted with each and every passing game.
Yeah, Alabama's got a real opportunity this week. I think, particularly if they could win both games this week. But even if they come out with a split this week, they've got a chance down the stretch. Not a lot, not if they win this game, they're in. But it's hard to gauge. The schedule changes every time you look at it, almost, where you would have said that, oh, that trip to Starkville, that's going to be tough, and it'll be tough. But they looked terrible last night. Ole Miss and Alabama has a trip to Oxford coming up. They looked great. You watched Arkansas and you wondered how that game got away from Alabama, although Herb, not to put everything on an injury, and Alabama had a lead and should have played better. But that was just a bad matchup situation in that Arkansas game, and had a chance against Tennessee. Should not have lost a 15-point lead against Tennessee, which is not a guard-heavy, create kind of team. Rick Barnes is a really good coach. But no, I wouldn't say past LSU, Auburn, and Kentucky, there's a fourth team that you could just put your finger on and say, oh yeah, they're in. Florida needs to win tonight at Texas A&M. I mean, man, there's no guarantee. If you're at the start of the season, even the start of the regular season, SEC, you say, oh yeah, well that's Florida will go to College Station and win, but they got blown out in Columbia, Columbia, Missouri. So we'll see how they do. Frank Martin, as always, they dig such a deep hole in November and December, and then they're really tough to play in February. So interesting to see how they do against Georgia. But it's pretty wide open, and when you start talking about fourth place, you're talking about a double bye in Nashville.
Yeah. And that's huge, no doubt about it. And it really does, though. It's changed with each week because, as you said, Alabama gets a split this week between Auburn and LSU. If it can accomplish that, you're thinking, well, you get to that final 3-week run of the regular season. And a couple weeks ago, if you were talking about A&M and Ole Miss and South Carolina, and even Vanderbilt's playing better basketball, you thought, man, if they get to those last 3 weeks, they're going to have a chance to make a real run, and I still think they can, but it doesn't seem as much of a given as it did even a week and a half, 2 weeks ago.
No, it'll be a fight, but you want to give yourself a chance.
Yeah.
They're going to, I say it every year, it's been a recurring thing. This is not on NATO. This is a variety of circumstances. They're sitting there right now, or they're going to get there on March the 10th, and they'll have 3 home games that they're kicking themselves about. 10 Arkansas, Tennessee. You can talk about how tough it is on the road, and it is tough on the road, but those are winnable home games in which you're favored, and didn't happen. And that's the difference in Alabama sitting there at 13-10 right now and 16-7. And those games were there to win. And again, Herb was out for 2 of those games. 10 was the very first game under a brand new system. I understand that. So some opportunities were there, but that's what happens to you in a transition year. So we'll see how it pans out in the long range, and maybe they can get on that run and just get in. You don't want to worry about what seed you're in. You just want to get in. If you're playing in Dayton, you're playing in Dayton. That's in.
Mm-hmm. Looking at tonight specifically, in what ways does not having Herbert Jones for this second go-around with Auburn make it even more difficult, the task at hand for Alabama?
They've got guys, Dowdy, McCormick, even Okoro, also at his size, who can put the ball on the floor and make plays, and Herb could guard any of those guys. Now, you probably got to put Petty on Okoro. So it's tougher. It'll be tougher. They have to do a better job. They beat Georgia because Georgia didn't defend Alabama particularly well, but Alabama didn't defend Georgia particularly well either. It's what it was sort of the SEC version of what SEC people think of with Big 12 football. It's 66-63, and whoever had the ball last.
I've said it here in the last couple of days.
Samir Wheeler was able to get to the rim.
Yeah.
So and Herb cleans up so much of that. I mean, in terms of being able to at least stop one guy on the perimeter from getting in there. And if you wanted to, in that Georgia game, you could put him on Samir Wheeler if you wanted to. You could put him on Dowdy tonight, or you could put him on Okoro. But you can't really put John Petty out there on a point guard and get him stopped. So Kyra's got to step up and do it. Having Beetle back helps a little bit. Didn't have Beetle for the Arkansas game. People overlook that too. But it'll be tough. Auburn's got three guys who can really do that. If Cambridge comes off the bench and makes 7 threes, then you're beat.
Yeah.
There's nothing to do about that. You just got to hope he doesn't go crazy. And you do that by defending him. But guy who he made 6 threes. He made 6 threes against South Carolina and 7 against LSU, and he hadn't made another 3 all year. Now,
I think he was 0 for 2 here in Tuscaloosa last month.
Yeah,
really
barely
didn't have an impact on the game.
Played, but
yeah,
I know he played. So, but the other thing that it absolutely boils down to, and it always does for this particular Alabama team, you got to stay even on the boards. You don't have to out-rebound Auburn by 15 or 20, but you can't get out-rebounded by 15 or 20. And they can put Wiley and McLemore's a good offensive rebounder, Purifoy, and so they create a lot of problems. They got a lot more pieces on their chessboard, is the analogy I like to use. They got a lot more of those pieces than Alabama does right now.
And I guess Purifoy is going to be able to go tonight. He wasn't able to go against LSU.
They said it was
weekend.
sickness, though, so I would have to think he's back. Yeah, I hope so.
You're right about Herb, too. I mean, defensively, the guy is so smart. Even when he's off the ball, his instincts and awareness from a help perspective and stepping into lanes and doing things like that, he's able to shut down a lot of that even when he's off the ball. Not to mention what he's able to do when he's in transition defense. So in a game that's going to be anticipated to be very much of the 94-foot variety, you miss Herb Jones on a multitude of sort of levels for tonight. Talking with Cecil Hurt at the Tuscaloosa News.
Plus 6 or 7 rebounds.
Yeah. Yeah, double, as we said last time out against Auburn. So
you can put Beetle out there and get some help on the perimeter, but you're giving up rebounds. So
do you have to kind of look at Javian Davis and Beetle together as trying to give you what you're missing from Herbert Jones? And that sounds crazy because we're talking about a post and a guard. Right. But collectively, I guess what you've got to get now from a couple of those kind of guys with no. Well,
I thought they both contributed to Georgia, yes, in different ways. Javian battled. He ended up fouling out and playing 22, 23 minutes. But he battled. Beetle was tough. Did some on-ball things. Jalen Forbes did a couple of nice things, but you can't just put Jalen Forbes out there and say, go do what Herb did. That's just not fair. So yeah, you try and everybody elevates a little bit. Our needs to be a little bit better on the ball, but it's just the best. If he can be back, if Herb can legitimately be back at contributory level, I wouldn't say 100%, but if he can be back for Texas A&M and beyond, then that'll make a difference for him in that stretch.
Cecil, we heard earlier in the week that Tua Tagovailoa seemed to pass one of those highly anticipated mile markers in his recovery from that hip injury in pretty positive fashion. With that, Cecil, what do you anticipate sort of the new quarterback fever ramp up being like as we move deeper into this draft process and in specifics what it could mean for Tua as we get closer to the combine and then pro days, and perhaps even a possibility for him at some point later in the process to get out there and do some things on the field.
Well, it certainly makes him. He was already going to be a big story at the combine. Probably makes him a bigger story. Now, he's not going to go out and do a workout at the combine in terms of, throwing live, that sort of thing. If he does that at all, it'll be a pro day here, probably. But, he'll get poked and prodded and talked to and talked about at the combine a good bit. I don't know if you've got teams. What I suspect, Travis, you got some teams that are trying to talk themselves out of Tua, and some teams that are trying to talk themselves into Tua. And, it just depends. Ian Rappaport had that report earlier this week, and Ian certainly plugged into all that. But I don't know if that came from Lee Steinberg or not.
Oh, gosh, that sounded like it came straight from the Lee bat phone almost, you know?
So that was my first thought about it.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But what I hope is that Tua's doing great, and he's had the absolute best medical care you could possibly have. And so if there's any chance for somebody to be making one of those accelerated recoveries, it would be Tua. And again, I'm still not 100% sure, even if I were a general manager, if the point is for Tua to be ready on September the 1st of 2020.
Yeah.
Depends on who I am and what my quarterback situation is. And if I've got a veteran that I'm going to let play for a while and my mindset is he's going to be ready, whether it's in November or for 2021. And then I've got a franchise quarterback. I think people now are getting themselves so worked up that Tua's going to start the first game for somebody. And I don't know if that's the case, and I don't know that there are general managers that feel like they have to have that be the case.
Yeah, that's where it could go either way for Tua in terms of where he lands, which team he lands with, because let's say you're like the Chicago Bears and you kind of view your team as being there almost, except for maybe the quarterback position. And, do you view Tua in a light in which he can jump right in and play? If he can't, then, he's probably better served, and your franchise is better served with him going somewhere where maybe you bring in Phillip Rivers, right? A free agent now. And you plug Phillip Rivers in there for a year or two, but you also draft Tua and you kind of roll with that for a year or two.
That would be one option. There's just so much out there, and ultimately, I think, Travis, you and I, we're like the Skipper and Gilligan. We're the only two people who are out there on this island. But if I get a medical report that makes me say, well, by golly, he's going to be 100%. He's going to be exactly what he was.
Yeah.
I take him first.
Yeah.
I take him before I take Joe Burrow.
Oh, no doubt. Me. No doubt in my mind. I mean, if you could tell me today,
we paddle that boat out there and we're stuck on that island, but that's what I think.
We don't have Ginger and Marianne out there with us either, by the way.
No, they're not general managers. Nick Saban. When did they ever draft any players that Nick Saban was?
But I'm with you. If you told me today, even if you told me it was a decade, if you told me I was just getting a decade of peak Tua, I would easily, and without hesitation, take him over Joe Burrow. But you're right.
Do I think Joe Burrow could be a very good NFL quarterback? Yes. Do you have a great Heisman-worthy college season? Yes, absolutely. Not arguing that. If you're asking me which one has a chance to be a decade franchise quarterback like you're talking about,
superstar, a
superstar of what Mahomes looks like he's becoming, what Brady's been, I'd take Tua over Joe Burrow.
Yeah, and that's where if the progress with the hip continues, that's where it could benefit him though, because if a team that is set to win right now but needs a quarterback, is willing to go up there in the top 5, Tua could end up in a lot better spot than Joe Burrow. With Burrow going to Cincinnati, and let's say a potential real contender comes climbing up into that top 5 to get Tua, if medically, and we know that's the biggest of ifs when you talk about the next level. But I think we are on that sort of stranded island out there a little bit on Tua. Hey, we always appreciate you joining us here, Cecil, on the program. Always appreciate the insight, the analysis, the wisdom from Cecil Hurt of the Tuscaloosa News at Tidesports.com. Thanks a lot, Cecil.
Okay, Travis. Talk to you soon.